Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, wherever you're located in the world. My name is Natalie Armstrong-Motin, the founder of Will Work for Food and the New Possibilities Hour. And it is my great pleasure to get to introduce our speaker. But first, I want to thank the co-moderators that are with us today, Jean Lawler and Jeff Kitchaven. They always do such a fantastic job for all of our programs. Really, really impressive. I also want to thank you all in advance for any donation that you can make, either to the charities that Pavlo, our presenter today, will introduce us to, or to your local food bank. And on that note, who has the running total for this week's donations?
Jean,
I have that one, Natalie. Yes.
All right.
All the way up to $258,000 of donations to food banks around the world, of which people have told us. And you know that that's, I'm sure it's much more than that people have given. So thank you. It's wonderful, the generosity.
Excellent. Our community is so incredibly generous. We really appreciate all of that. So today we're going to have an opportunity to talk to a friend and colleague from Ukraine, Pavlo Bogachenko. And Pavlo is an attorney at law, also an LLM. He's got 9+ years of experience in consulting with clients at top-ranking national and international law firms in Ukraine. His areas of practice include commercial dispute resolution, tax litigation, international arbitration, and complex legal support of international business transactions. Pavlo is also a fellow for the American Bar Association Section for Dispute Resolution. And we are absolutely thrilled that he can be with us today to talk about how the legal and resolution industries can best help the people of Ukraine. Pavlo, my friend, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you, everyone, for this opportunity to join, to share with you, as well as to be with you. It's tremendously important to be here and to share with you all the information I want to speak to you. And many thanks for everyone for supporting Ukrainian people through these extremely challenging and difficult times. You know, when I was thinking what to speak and what to share with you, I thought about preparing some fancy presentation and the slides and so on. And then what we learned in Ukraine during the last weekend in those cities being liberated from Russian forces by Ukrainian forces, so pictures of civil casualties, of people being murdered and all the atrocities, it caught everyone in Ukraine, including me and my partner, off guard. We didn't know what to say, what to think. That's why it's very difficult to process and separate emotions from the facts. So first I thought maybe it's worth showing the pictures what's happened, but secondly I thought that it's too emotional, and I'm sure that everyone who is concerned already saw it from your local media or international media. So I decided that I'll not take much time and just briefly share with you some facts and information of ways how to support. And in order to do so, I just want to start with some couple of facts, mostly without pictures, but for everyone to understand what we are talking now and why it's important to support Ukraine. The one picture, I tried to use not Ukrainian media, but international sources or foreign sources in order not to be biased or be less biased. So this is the information from Statista based on the information from the United Nations on the number of civilian casualties in Ukraine as of April 5th. So as you can see from the numbers, in numbers of people killed, it's more than 1,500 people being killed. From this number is about 130 children are confirmed to be dead, And that's only official numbers which United Nations confirmed. In number of the injuries, it goes to more than 2,000. So when we're saying about these numbers, so behind each of these numbers is the human lives, human suffering, loss of close ones, family members, friends, and so on. This is to understand in the numbers what happened during the last 40 days. But not to be focused only on Ukraine, I wanted to show a couple of slides explaining which impact the situation in Ukraine has over the world. Because there are several problems we all facing together, and Ukrainians are really thankful for the world supporting us. So one of the problems is the number of the refugees. This is information from Statista from months ago. It showed that 2.5 million of Ukrainians seeking refuge after Russian invasion. As of now, numbers are even bigger. According to the various sources, it's from 3 to 4 million people, depending on the source of information. The second global impact is that Ukraine is a major producer of the agricultures. So Ukraine, one of the world's leading producers of sunflower oil, wheat, barley, maize, and other agricultural sources. So taking into account the world facing a food shortage problem, the impact of Ukraine not being able to be as effective as usual in its agricultural season, which is under the risk now, could have a negative consequence to the food supply chain throughout the world, because Ukraine exports agriculture everywhere in the world, especially to neighboring regions, as well as Middle East and Asia. Other slide is the slide showing the impact of Chernobyl when it happened in 1986. And as you can see from this map, when Chernobyl happened, radioactive influence spread out from Ukraine through all the Europe and even reached at some certain degree the United Kingdom. Obviously, the most severe impact happened in Ukraine and affected the territories around Chernobyl, but as you can see, it goes further. And when the tragedy in 1986 in Chernobyl happened, it was only one reactor which blew up in Chernobyl. But what we learned during the last several weeks, that Russians, when they attacked Ukraine, they attacked as well the Chernobyl facility, as well as Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, which has 6 nuclear reactors. So in case something goes wrong there, the consequence in terms of radiation would be more severe. And probably you saw these footages when they are bombarding with the missiles and weaponry nuclear facilities there. We hope and finger crossed that nothing happens, but this is kind of ominous signs into terms of impact. Other impact, Ukraine not rich on the natural resources except for agriculture, but still Ukraine has lots of precious metals and producing lots of industrial gases which used in microchips production. And since most of these productions in Ukraine concentrated on the south and southeast of Ukraine, which under attack, there could be a shortage in this area. So why I wanted to start with this with you, because this could have what's happening in Ukraine already has impact on what's happening in the world, and God bless, it won't go further, but there are serious risks that situation, if it escalates, could impact world even more and even bigger. Yeah, and now like moving more on again to the Ukrainian focus. So there are various ways legal community can support Ukrainians, and the legal community already does this tremendously. I told on our previous talk to Natalie, when the war started, me and my girlfriend, we both were in the United States, and we went there not because we were fleeing from the war, but because I had the New York bar exam. I did it on 22nd and 23rd of February, and on 24th, I woke up from a gut feeling that I need to wake up. I read the message from my mom saying, like, please call me when you read this. And I was still confused. I didn't know what is going on and what is happening. But at this moment, I noticed on my messengers, on my emails, lots of messages of support from colleagues all over the world. And most of these colleagues, they are lawyers, external legal counsels, in-house legal counsels, private practitioners, attorneys, and so on. And I can't count the number of messages of support and offers for various means of support I received from the colleagues. And it's not only me, it's all the other my colleagues. This had the same effect. There's lots of places where Ukrainians are welcomed by the lawyers, where they hosted by the lawyers, or they providing support. So there's already lots of done, and a couple of spheres everyone can support. The first thing, you can spread the word of what is going on, because what is happening right now in Ukraine, that's a hybrid war, and there's lots of manipulations and fake information and propaganda happening through the Russian side. So in order to resist this, everyone who thinks critically and can spread verified information of what's going on is very important to sustain the fight, not only on the battlefield, but in our hearts and in our minds. So this slide showed the resource. This is Google Doc. You can go via the link or via QR code on your screen. And this Google Doc is being put by Ukrainian volunteers who are preparing messages of what is going on in Ukraine, which you can copy and paste. You can edit, redact it, and post it in your social media of what is going on. These volunteers, they're doing it in various languages. So wherever you are, you likely find the text in one of the languages you speak or understand, and you can use this document as the source for the basic information you may spread in the social media. But once again, you are free to amend and add this. But if you need some basic information, go to this file and just share the information. The next ways how the legal community can support Ukrainian people is through various petitions which are happening right now. One of them is the Justice for Ukraine. That's web portal with enable petition feature, which allows you to support petition for creation of international tribunal over war crimes that being committed in Ukraine. Similar to the tribunal that been in Nuremberg after the World War II, the idea of this petition created by prominent legal practitioners is to support and launch initiative of creation of this independent international tribunal. You may be aware that there is already an investigation started by International Criminal Court, which is going on. There is separate dispute initiated in Ukraine in the International Court of Justice against Russia regarding false interpretation of Genocide Convention. But as well, like in the current situation, there's lots of things happening through various sites and in various fields. This idea of this tribunal is to be more comprehensive and cover the wider issues and to be more effective. So in current situation, some of the practitioners will be real, there won't be enough remedies. So the more comprehensive remedies and legal tools we have, the better. So feel free to go to this website and support this petition. As well as you could join various legal task forces working over Ukraine problem. There's not one legal task force. There are at least few international ones. So one of them is Ukraine Justice Alliance. It's a pro bono legal task force which combines together sole practitioners, international law firms, national law firms, and NGOs, including Ukrainian ones. And the idea is to be some kind of think tank over the problem, what's happening in Ukraine, in order to be able to help Ukraine resolve all the legal hurdles and challenges of this solution. The idea of Ukraine Justice Alliance work in several fields. One of them is to how from sanctions go to real reparations, to real compensation of damage caused by Russian invasion in Ukraine. There's separate initiative within this task force is to how to prosecute and mitigate environmental damage, how to help temporarily displaced people, and so on. So because some of these questions being put in front of legal community do not have answers yet. And there's lots of jurisprudence which being forgotten after Second World War II, because no one thought that it was going to repeat again. So now legal practitioners thinking about what are the legal mechanisms which are available and can be enforced, or what are the legal tools and mechanisms which could be developed further in terms of regional and international regulations in order to get effective response and compensation and to restoration of peace, which will happen after the end of the war. So feel free to join Ukraine Justice Alliance or other pro bono alliances if you wish to participate in this think tank. The work of this alliance only started, but the idea that they are producing white papers with questions in order to collect thoughts of different legal practitioners and then develop helpful guidelines which in the future be helpful to convert it into real legal actions. The further petition is initiated by Ukrainian Bar Association. Once again, the idea of this petition is to stop the war and aggression against Ukraine and to protect the rule of law. You can also join this petition in order to make it more effective and enforce it. The idea is the same, to spread the word and to develop working mechanism to mitigate and respond to this. There's only few petitions which are available. There are other petitions like for NATO to close the airspace over Ukraine, to support some humanitarian initiatives, and so on. So there are various tools that those I'd like to share with you, but you are free to join other initiatives that are available. Other website which are most comprehensive one in terms of donations is the website called supportukraine.com. There are other websites which have the same idea to collect comprehensive information on the charities and fundraisers available to support various humanitarian and peaceful initiatives in Ukraine, as well as to support Ukrainian military. This is just the one I found and verified before us speaking. I want just to explain you how this site works. So as Natalie mentioned at the beginning, you could join any of the fundraisers. This one has the different groups and links to various foundations. So if you can see my Google Chrome page, so the donations are divided in several categories. One of them is fundraisers for urgent humanitarian help for Ukraine. This is the information about foundation, which is called Razom. You can click the button and go to the link to donate. You can go to their website to learn more about what they are doing, how they help. There is separate foundation, charitable foundation, Sigma, social initiative. Once again, you can go to donate directly or visit their website to learn more what are their priorities, how and where they are sending money. There is separate field in which Ukraine needs support is the defensive help. You can support directly Ukrainian army by donating through the account created by National Bank in Ukraine. The proceeds from this donation would go directly to the armed forces of Ukraine. They have the SWIFT account numbers, routing numbers, as well as a page when you can donate using your credit card, just like a regular purchase on the website. A separate, not connected to the government initiative, which been enforced starting from 2014, it's Come Back Alive. It's Ukrainian largest army support foundation. What they're doing now, they're helping in 2014, they started to help over Donbass, Donetsk and Lugansk region with the aid. Now they are one of the most effective in supporting Ukrainian armed forces, territorial defense forces, because there's lots of things in shortage now, like body armor, helmets, thermal imaginers, first aid kits, which necessary to first response and which are under huge shortage. So how they work: when they receive a request from verified source in territorial defense forces, from volunteer organizations, or from army units saying, hey, we are about to go in a battlefield and our soldiers have not enough armory, they found suppliers, they collect money, and they send directly necessary suppliers and tools which under shortage right now. They're very efficient, very big, and work very well. Other source, it's Ukraine Emergency Aid, the Open Dialogue Foundation. So the same idea is to support protective gear to Ukrainian army. Once again, you can visit their websites and see whether you want to support them directly, how they work, their reporting systems, and so on. Other sphere is to help people. There are several ways. It's World Central Kitchen is idea to support families who are fleeing with the food supplies. UNICEF Foundation, either USA or other UNICEF foundations, you can support. They are focusing on helping mostly children, women to resist in these challenging times. Other foundations is Save the Children. It's clear from their aim, they mostly working on as a task force to provide humanitarian supplies to children. Another one, SOS Ukraine, Voice of Children, United Help Ukraine. They're very effective in finding medicines, tools, and supplies, including first aid kits, and so on and so forth. So that's a couple that proposed on this website. You also probably were aware about the Red Cross initiatives. There is a separate account for Red Cross Ukraine, where the money goes directly to Red Cross Foundation in Ukraine. So there is shorter logistical chain to provide this support. You as well can support your local Red Cross as well as International Red Cross, and the money from them would go anyway to Ukraine, but it's up to you what is easier, faster, and so on for you. A couple more, except for this, there are other tools and other ways to support other volunteering organizations. So like some of my friends, they are volunteering themselves, helping hospitals, helping to find supplies. One of my friendly NGO, they're from the first day of war, they started production of the body armory, the bulletproof vests, which they provide for free to those who are in the battlefield. Now I don't have this vest. They are doing it on complete free basis. They're very effective in delivering this. If you wish to send money to them, please feel free after this discussion, chat with me, connect with me in social media, and I would be happy to share with you more specific information in the terms what you want to support. If, for example, you want to donate more on the humanitarian supplies, or on supporting children, or supporting army, some small volunteer group, regional group, depending on the region, as well as even if you want support pets in this situation, because there's as well problem with this. There are separate foundations which run by people who are trusted and do what they are required to do. So depending on what's your priorities, feel free to connect with me and ask direct questions which worries you, or in the ways you want to support and share. There's a separate direction in terms of displaced people. There is a legal force which helps pro bono these people to settle. as well, there is the people who helping with a shelter, providing accommodation and so on. So if you wish to support these kind of fields, once again, you can search it by yourself or can text me and I would be happy to help. I think on this, I probably conclude my long speech and we would be happy to answer questions.
Pavlo, that was a comprehensive and thorough and really important presentation. Thank you. If you don't mind my asking, where are you now? Are you in Ukraine?
No, I'm in Dublin. So after being in US, we came to US with my girlfriend. I was supposed to have my exam and we expected to have a vacation there. But when war started on the next day of the exam, of course, we didn't have vacation. We just stayed for about 2 weeks there, trying to understand what we do. And then we decided to go to Ireland because my girlfriend, she used to work and live here for 4 years, a couple of years before. We moved here for several reasons. First of all, I'm still continue working remotely on Ukrainian projects, helping our clients, our teams. Most of them we are helping pro bono because major part of our team, they are still in Ukraine and they are not able to work as we worked previously, but there are lots of legal issues happening right now. So for me, it's easier to work in the similar time zones. As well, we can travel from here to Ukrainian border in a couple of hours if we need to do so, because our families are still in Odessa. They don't want to leave Odessa because they are saying the whole their life is there. It's hard to them to leave. It's relatively safe in Odessa these days, but a couple of days and been missile attack on one the storage facility with oil. But comparing to what's going on in Mariupol, it's safe in Odessa. So they don't want to go, but in case they decide to leave, we able from here in 4 hours be on Ukrainian, Polish or Romanian border and pick them up.
Are you comfortable telling us more about the impact on your family and how it's affected day-to-day life, even in Odessa, which you said is still relatively peaceful?
Yeah, so I believe that in those whom I know, in my family as well as me, when it started, the only way for us to be, sane and cope with everything what's going on is to be as busy as possible. So my family, they are in Odessa. My father and mother, they have their small businesses, so they continue to work during the day because they say they have employees that they need to support. So they're trying, even though there are lots of disruptions, they're trying to work and go to work every day. And in free time after their work, they try to volunteer there. So my mom, she delivered some supplies to those who are temporarily displaced. My father also trying to help from this standpoint. That allows them to be intact. The same for me and for my girlfriend, Anna. So when everything started, first 24 hours, it was horrible and we did not understand just the feeling of shock. After the 24 hours, we understood that we can't be just shocked anymore. We need to do something. So what we are doing, we are working on our projects to support our teams, our clients. And after that, when we have free time, we're trying to volunteer as much as possible. So after these 24 hours, we sent, I believe, a couple of dozens of emails and letters to the media saying, hey, we are Ukrainians, we want to speak up, we want to share with you information of what is going on and how it's possible to support Ukrainians. It's one thing. There is another thing with the shortage of supplies. Months ago before it started, I did not expect that I would be able to find thermal imaginers and helmets in the USA, the first aid kits in Israel, to find a way to deliver it to Ukrainian-Polish border, and then to find a way to someone to pick up it from the border and to deliver it to Kyiv and Odessa because it was under shortage. So we've been doing a lot of the logistic things to collecting money and sending some supply support. When we came to Dublin, we went to one of the peaceful protests that happened here to support Ukraine. We spoke with the local activists and they are saying, hey, we have here problem. We have lots of humanitarian aid, which stays here because we don't know how and where it to deliver. Then we found our friend who's working with humanitarian aid in Ukraine. We connected them and now they established this logistical chain how to deliver it. So we try to work in this field. We also now trying to put some task force and solution to help Irish people and Ukrainian people here who are temporarily displaced for hosting, because the Irish people as well as the other people in the world, they're helping so much, but there are still language barriers and this which need to be tackled. So that's what we do here. But like coming back to our family, they're trying to help on the place there. We have our grandparents. So they are of senior age, and for them, like it's difficult to process them. So one of grandmothers, she's 82 years old. Both grandparents from both of our side, they live in small villages in Odessa region. It's kind of more probably safer there than being in Odessa. So, and they refuse to leave, so they're staying there. They're also trying to keep their normal as it's possible. When we were asking them, please leave, it would be easier for us to help from here and it would be much more safer, they were saying a couple of things. First one, we've been through this in 20th century, and like we had to settle our homes and houses. We don't want to settle again somewhere else. My grandmother answered me that, hey, I have my plants, I have my cattle, chickens. If I live here, there would be nothing left. I don't do this. So like we told last week, my grandmother had her birthday. She said, yeah, yesterday I planted potato, tomorrow I plant something else. So they are trying to pretend that everything is okay, nothing changes possible, and probably the best solution to continue things what you've been doing. When my other friend who's in military, he's posted recently the lesson he learned from his commanders, and in short this lesson says you had to do what are you capable of doing. It doesn't matter like how you do it how you can do it. You don't look to the other people, you don't blame them, you don't teach them, you keep doing your thing while they are doing their thing. And probably that there is some wisdom in this phrase, because each of us trying to do this. Other thing in terms of our family, so my girlfriend, her mother has the custody over her nephew because he's an orphan. He's 14 years old, and that's also interesting and difficult how he processed this, because when everything started, he said in the first call that I was not expecting that my grandma would wake me up saying, please wake up, the war started. In a couple of days after that, he was saying, I want to do the Molotov cocktails. I found the guide on the internet how to do it, so I want to go to volunteer with our territorial defenses to help them. Now as a child, he's a gamer. he played some online games, and he's telling stories when he teaching some adult males from Russia or from other Russian-speaking countries why they should not believe informational propaganda and fake news, and explaining, hey, the sources you are reading are not verified. You need to read more verified sources and to open your eyes. So that's tremendous. And he's only 14 years old.
Wow. And what has happened to your law practice? It would be hard to believe that it's just going along with transactions and lawsuits as before. What could law practice look like now?
So now, it looks like in Ukraine, when you get a law degree, you are not able mostly to choose your classes which you go. You study 5 years, and during 5 years, depending on the sphere, you go through the set of mandatory law classes. Some of them are humanitarian law, international public law, customs of war, and other spheres of international law. So we learn it as a part of our curricula during law school. So now law practice feels like all what we learned in law school books and did not expect to practice never, now being unwind, and we're starting to practice those spheres we heard only in law school. So most of the, like I do dispute resolution. So most of dispute resolutions in the classic way, which we had, is being suspended. It's either domestic or international disputes, everything suspended because Ukrainian side is not able to process and work and respond now. But in the meantime, we're still getting lots of requests from our client as a consequence and aftermath of war. So some of them being like, hey, we have our contract and we have force majeure or frustration clause here. We are not able to perform it, what we need to do. And you know, all this, like in the boilerplate provisions about force majeure, it started to being practiced a lot now. We're giving a lot of responses to clients, what are the steps they need to do. We're doing lots of newsletters and updates for free for them. There's other sphere which is more difficult. So we had a call with our client, and the client canceled it in a couple of minutes before sending us, hey, please let us reschedule because our plant is under fire. And actually the idea of this call was to prepare them in case how they need to document damages to their business. So we are doing lots of work and pro bono help to clients to help them to document the damages caused to their business facilities under the occupation or destructions by Russians. We're helping them to document this. We are actively looking now for the forensic experts in the ballistic, in missiles, weaponry, and so on, to help them to do the necessary forensics, because as of now, most of Ukrainian forensic experts with this experience are too busy or not able to work. So we're now like working with the international experts to put the guidelines how to preserve a crime scene until the moment when it would be possible and safe to go there and to do proper forensics. That's the one side. The other side, we're working with them on the preparation of evidence and possible submissions in future to initiate, to report war crimes and to probably collect some damages. The damages collection is kind of the last thing, and there is no answer to this question yet, but we are doing lots of research and working on cases in order to prepare them, at least to have documented it. And we hope that in the future, the proper legal mechanism would work. So this is happening every time, and you could not expect, you start the day with one plan, but during the day you receive a call or email from clients saying, hey, we have a question, what we need to do, and you respond, because most of these requests are urgent and need to do responses quickly. As well as Ukrainian parliament, they're doing lots of jurisprudence as response to what's going on. This impacts how business works a lot. Some of them do, some of the laws, they are providing tax waivers and some able to help business, but some others, they introduce additional burdens and restrictions which need to be faced, tackled, and addressed.
Wow. Wow. I know we have questions from others. Jonathan Pearl, you had a question posted in the chat. If you'd like to unmute yourself and turn on your video if you're able. You want to pose your question, please?
Hi, yeah. Pavlo, great to hear from you, and sorry you're having such a hard time. Just one thought, this war is going to end eventually. What plans are there for reconciliation? Because there's going to need to be a lot of bridge building with Russia.
Thank you, Jonathan, for this question. That's a difficult question. There is a discussion about reconciliation plans and to addressing everything, but there is no certain yet, but there certainly would be something. And in terms of my experience, when in 2014 Russia first invaded Ukraine in this century, we've been working a lot with international foundations to run the NGO projects to help to develop critical analytical thinking and to develop tools for peaceful conflict resolution through dialogue. Because like what happened on the eastern part of Ukraine in 2014, that's the explosion backed by the misinformation, and there's been lots of hatred and so on. So the international foundations and as Ukrainian government, they were worried that this would blow up Ukraine and divide Ukraine. That's why there have been lots of effort, informational campaigns, trainings, and activities in order to teach people to resolve conflicts peacefully, to communicate through the challenges and to unite Ukrainians. I believe there would be similar initiatives after the war in order to, because like when we did this, our NGO doing debating projects used debate as a tool of peaceful dispute resolution and dialogue. So we teach these students and school children of Ukraine, and we believe this worked cumulatively, all these NGO initiatives and government initiatives for Ukraine, because Ukrainians now are united as never before, and Ukrainians wanted to have a peace and still want to have a peace. So that's now what's happening. That's not our choice, that's how we defend ourselves, but I believe there would be the same initiatives put in place to reconcile afterwards, because I still expect there would be a lot of hatred from both sides. Maybe there would be some lessons learned and reconciliation practices that have been used after World War II, but the question is of the timing and as to the efficiency, because according to some reports, reconciliation after the World War II took at least for 20 years. There's various data, but someone says longer, someone says shorter. What would be now in terms of the number of populations? Because Ukrainians is like, to some reports in Ukraine lives from 35 to 40 million of people. There are lots of Ukrainians outside of Ukraine, and in Russia there are 140 million people. So there is a big question how to effectively reconcile and build bridges with these numbers, but there should be some plan afterwards put, but the thoughts and discussions are already in place.
Thank you.
Okay, are there other questions? If there are, please feel welcome to unmute yourself and pose your question.
I have a question then for you. Thank you so much, Pavlo, for being here, and all the best. Certainly, the Ukrainian Bar Association and the Mediation Association is, what would you say, putting out, spreading, news about this, that, or the other thing. And for example, wrote to lawyers in Russia early on, about different things that they wanted them to know. From a legal standpoint, and well, as opposed to just the human standpoint, how is it that you see the lawyers in Ukraine making a difference when your world hopefully comes back to normal, if whatever the new normal may be, but hopefully back to Ukraine?
Yeah, thank you. That's my pleasure. Thank you for this question. So in terms of how lawyers, I believe that as now agenda is changed, but they would be of extreme help to what's going on in various sectors. So the years before the Ukraine mediation and arbitration is a new things for Ukraine, but in terms of arbitration, it's about 20 years at Ukraine trying to develop it. In terms of mediation practices, it's about 10 years. But during the last 5 years, the mediation was being used as a tool in the courtrooms in order to facilitate the dispute. So there are lots of Ukrainian mediators and arbitrators being trained in Ukraine by Canadian, US, and European professionals in the fields of arbitration and mediation, and they are practicing this a lot in their private practice. So I believe they would play a very important role after it ends in helping people to reconcile, facilitate, and resolve their hurdles and challenges they have. So that's for sure they would play active role in this. In terms of the other fields, I believe the Ukrainian lawyers would play important role in the new jurisprudence with yet to come after it ends to facilitate, because there are lots of areas in which it's needed, starting from the peace and reconciliation, going to infrastructure, because lots of infrastructure objects and housing being destroyed, and government would put a huge effort in rebuilding all this, in supporting people to get their compensation, to help them find a home. And every step of this would need a legal support to put effective housing system, for example, in place to help people to set a criteria and so on and so forth. So that's what happened afterwards. But in terms of what's happening now, Ukrainian Bar Association, they already put in place their emergency channel. So those people who are in Ukraine need legal aid for various reasons. For example, they're temporarily displaced and they lost their documents. And now they're, for example, in Poland without their documents, or they are moving and they need to get necessary permission, or they are already moved somewhere, they need to help get immigration support. So there is an emergency channel response which posts requests from regular people that need help, and volunteers from Ukrainian Bar Association, they are just addressing this. Okay, I got this, I work on this there, then they post, we resolved this, new request yet to come. And this goes very quickly and very efficiently. So message of request being posted, and like very quickly there is a response, we are working already on this, we resolved this, and so on and so forth. So there's what's going on. So I believe when it ends, probably there would be more structure in this and so on. But anyway, everyone is ready to help as much as can.
For the regular news outlets, you know, the standard traditional news outlets, are there any in particular, you know, the BBC or any in particular that you think are more informative, you know, less biased one way or the other about this, if you really want to look for information?
So as of now, I can't say there is one, because what we are doing, we're trying to look various sites and various perspectives. So in terms of Ukraine, we mostly look for, there is independent media called Ukrainian Truth, and they are posting everyday updates of what's going on. It's been founded by Ukrainian opposition journalist, maybe you heard from him, his name is Gorgi Gongadze. He was killed because of his journalism, and this been under wide attention from the US, but this media works under independent standards and they're trustful. Except for this, I read everyday updates of what's going from Ukrainian parliament and Ukrainian president. They have morning and evening update with the information on the region. So this what happened in this the situation in this region. Now I'm don't doing it 24/7, because like first week we did it 24/7. At some point we understood that it's not, we can't do this anymore because we would go insane. In terms of international media, there is Radio Liberty. It has branches over the world. It posts regular updates on Ukraine. They have Ukrainian branch, which pretty efficient and goes to the good journalism standards. In terms of international media like BBC, Reuters, CNBC, Guardian, whatever, I can't say that I have something in particular. I just try to listen from the various sources. So I check in the morning the US media, I check the UK, I check the Deutsche Welle. Luckily, our smartphone, they have enabled features that provide you already with all the updates. In terms of Russian sources, it's difficult to process them because there's lots of misinformation happening there, but we're trying to listen to them as well in order to know what are the possible information manipulation happening. But like in terms of Russians, the Alexei Navalny's foundation, they are doing everyday podcasts on the news, what's happening. I'm not sure whether they are doing it in English, but they are doing it in Russian. I'm not aware whether you know the Russia put the legislation prohibiting fakes, and they treat as a fake every publication which use information and saying that Russia doing a war. So it's not allowed in Russia, mostly, as people say, to say that it's war. So every media who posts and saying it's war, they're treated as the fake agents or international agents. So the Alexei Navalny podcast, they're trying to do it in the way not being banned totally there, but they still under severe pressure, but they are trying to put coverage of what's going on with this. There is other one source, is a Belarusian media called Nexta, is like next and then A. If you remember the situation when the Ryanair flight being grounded in Belarus, I think last year. So on the board of this flight, there was one of the, if I'm not mistaken, of the founders of this Nexta, because it's opposition news source from Belarus, but they are doing Russian coverage in Russian and in English of what's going on in Ukraine, and they are actually posting Ukrainian sources, international sources, and Russian sources, so you can learn what's going on from there. But anyway, in this situation, I'm very patriotic. I'm very supporting for Ukrainian sources, but to be more objective and to learn information, it's good to get our other sources. Surprisingly, sometimes some information I learn first from British or US media than from Ukrainian media, because probably they have more freedom to do so. Like as of now in Ukraine, the armed forces ask people not to post pictures of the missile attack and our defense systems, because this would put in jeopardy their positions and location, and would be easier for the aggressors to directly attack the facilities they need. So there is limitation in this, and Ukrainian media tries not to do it until the armed forces confirms it. But like when Odessa being attacked a couple of days ago, I learned the region where it happened from the BBC video footage posted.
Thank you. And thank you so much for being with us today. All the best to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
David Baca, you have a question?
Yes, please. Pavlo, thank you for being with us today and for all the information you're giving to us. The websites that you mentioned will be invaluable to be able to share information with others. I want to make a comment. I am not an attorney, okay? So I'm not asking this question for me, but is there a role for attorneys, for non-Ukrainian attorneys, to help? Because I have some Ukrainian friends that are collecting data for war crimes to be able to prosecute in the future. Is there a role for non-Ukrainian attorneys to help with that in any way possible?
Thank you, David. Yeah, there is actually a way for non-Ukrainian attorneys to help, and they are already doing it. So, like last week, I've been contacted by my former professor. He's from he's U.S. attorney, and he is former war crimes prosecutor in United Nations Tribunal. What he is doing right now, he is putting trainings for Ukrainian lawyers and armed forces on how to document war crimes and what is war crimes and what are the boundaries in order not to violate the Hague Convention, Hague Regulation or Geneva Conventions. So that's one thing. If you are trained and confident in doing so, that's what you can do. Generally, like basic principles of collecting evidence of war crimes, they're the same or very similar to evidence collection of regular crimes, but not everyone knows how to process, how to do it. There is the initiative in this field, including there are volunteers who are willing to translate and help translate what's going on. That's one side. There is another side in terms of non-Ukrainian attorneys, how they can help. There's lots of Ukrainians not in Ukraine now trying to find shelter. In European Union, they have temporary protection directive. The US put in force also temporary protection order, if I'm not mistaken. As far as you know, now there is no direct clarifications on how to apply and how this works. But anyway, people from Ukraine who are there and would need this protection, they would really appreciate some legal support in this. In terms of what's going on now, in terms of Europe and the US, there is no need to apply for refuge or asylum. There is a temporary protection, but monitoring the groups of Ukrainians in USA and in Europe, I still see a big demand from Ukrainian people. They're asking for lawyers, it's kind of basic and obvious questions. For them, it's not obvious how they could apply, whether they are allowed to work. There are Ukrainians who left Ukraine and who entrepreneurs, and they would tend and want to do business in those countries where they are in order not to be burdened for the country, as well as in order to probably create the workplaces. So there is requests for this, and if there's someone willing to help locally to explain those who from Ukraine there's a possible way to help and facilitate this.
Thank you. This is one of those times I wish I was an attorney.
Yeah, but once again, in terms of other things, like in terms of mediation and arbitration, you don't have to be attorney to do this, and there are lots of Ukrainians who left and they're under shock, under severe stress, and the help of the experienced mediator would be extremely helpful for them to reconcile and cope with everything they're going through right now.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you,
well,
David.
this has been one of our most moving and most insightful presentations. It's just a minute to 9 o'clock here in California, and it's about time for us to wrap it up. I wish we had time for other questions, but we just don't right now. Pavlo, on behalf of the Will Work for Food team, the New Possibilities Hour, I want to thank you for all that you're doing to help the situation in Ukraine, including your spending time with us this morning to share so much incredibly important and valuable information with us. Natalie, Jean, sorry, any other thoughts or comments?
May I break in? I know it's time, but in terms of an American trained mediator helping individual Ukrainians, as you just mentioned, how can we do that, and how can we contact people?
So depending on where you are, there's unfortunately there is no a single portal yet with information in contacting Ukrainians, but in Facebook there are groups creating like Ukrainians in Chicago, for example, or Ukrainians in Texas, or just generally groups of Ukrainians in the US. So if you wish, you could join these groups and post messages there. So that's the first thing that comes in my mind, probably. If I find some portal which connects Ukrainians there, so I share this information as well, probably post in my social media.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Amazing, thank you. Natalie just posted in the chat that our generous audience today so far has contributed $8,502.50 to help fight food insecurity in Ukraine and otherwise assist the Ukrainian people as they continue their noble efforts and struggles for freedom. Pavlo, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. It was an incredible presentation. Thank you, thank you. And with that, my friends, we are complete.
Yeah, just for the end, once again, there's not enough words to express my gratitude for this. It's my pleasure and my duty, I believe, to share this information, but this won't be possible without you providing these floors. That's why my huge thanks to you as well, for the whole audience, for your support you did just right now during this hour, and through the whole support you're doing all this time. That's tremendously helpful and really appreciable. Thank you, everyone. And if you wish to ask some questions, feel free to find me in social media. I would be happy to chat with you, answer any of your concerns. Once again, thanks a lot for everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All the best.